Okay. Can we please just talk about how casually this guy drops a Nürburgring video? What? Oh, wow. Alright, guys, welcome back to the Engineered Lifestyle with me, Alejandro Mendoza. And today, actually, we're just going to be doing a very quick response. I'll be the first to admit that GoPro video was kind of bland in places, but I think for those who suffer through, they'll get a lot of value from it. But this will be a much abridged version, and today we're actually going to be looking at some GoPro footage from the Nürburgring of all places, the shrine of motorsports. Yeah, thank you very much for volunteering this footage, and I have picked out some things that I definitely think will help the upload, as well as just the quality in general. So let's get to it. So can we all agree that this looks classic Nürburgring? Overcast, then later on there's going to be some sun peeking through, there's going to be some damp spots on the track. So first of all, props for writing this, because this looks, one, fun as hell, and two, a little intimidating. It's one thing to do in a video game, but another to do on a motorbike, I'm sure. But just as challenging as the environment is on the motorcycle, it is equally challenging for the camera, as you have found. I want to first go over the environment. One, we're in overcast setting. We have sun peeking through, which is going to really change up our exposure on the fly, and directionality. Like there's just nothing. There's Alba. There's nothing that is simple about this for you or for your camera. Going from that, I just want to say you nailed it with the shooting mode question. Really, if you are just watching on a tablet, even bigger than your phone there, 1080, most people are not going to be able to discern between 4K and 1080. So one major thing to hit on with 1080 is actually the file size, and this is something that you again hit right on the head. It is much more advantageous to shoot 1080, especially in long clips such as these. Your footage would have otherwise probably have been 15 to 20 gigabytes in 4K. The one thing with 1080p is you want to make sure that you have a higher threshold than that. Like the modern 4K GoPros that are then used in 1080p, their quality is obviously going to be much better. Alright, so moving along, the first thing that I notice here actually is 1080 60 frames per second. So at no point in this video do you slow it down, although I think there were some really cool moments in which you could. So what that's actually doing is you're already in a very difficult lighting situation, but 60 frames per second is actually lessening the time that light has to hit your sensor. So optimally, what you'd want to do is shoot this in 24 frames per second, or 30. I know you guys internationally have a different standard for cinematic, and I believe it's 30. Both of those settings will give you much more light into your sensor, and that will actually help reduce some of this artifact. This is actually a lot of ISO haze, and so I would also double check if you in fact have your ISO capped, because especially when you're exposing, you're rounding, in this clip, you're rounding the corner here, and you actually expose for the sky. You see, and it turns from bright to perfectly in focus, but your surroundings, the track, the trees, everything gets super dark, and you can start to see the ISO grain in there. And that is something that has really distinguished you having a very high ISO threshold. So give that a look. Apart from that, I would definitely keep your shutter constant. So it's very clear here also that there's an auto shutter situation going on, hence the really wide range of exposures, and that can be kind of distracting in footage. I know it's so difficult, especially when you have the camera aimed on your helmet, right? You're obviously accelerating around some of these corners and braking, so your head's going up and down, so your focus point is actually moving from relatively close to infinity. And what that can do is, one, expose for the sky, and two, then it will expose for the shadows, the ground, or the trees. and that will blow out your sky. So one more thing, the 1/48 shutter in the 24 frames per second, or 1/60 shutter with 30 frames per second, European standard, will do for you is it'll actually kind of blur, so it'll give the illusion that you are going even faster than you are, and that is definitely something that you want to maximize in this kind of footage. Just makes it look so much more epic. Not that it's not already epic, but more so. So one more thing is, if you do end up using 24 frames per second with 1/48 shutter speed here, what you're going to want to do is then throw on probably an ND8. And so in any other setting, ND8 is not going to work out. It's going to still be very overblown. It's just not that dark. But especially on an overcast day, I think you could get away with an ND8. And even with the ISO capped, you could probably minimize that grain. And I know that's something that you were very concerned about. And actually, that's the genesis of those YouTube artifacts, because I know there is some weird processing that YouTube does. It happens to my videos too. I think the very, very first motorcycle little mini edit that I did a month and a half ago or so, it just looks like crap, and it's like that super grainy, especially when I face the shadows. And I was frustrated with the upload, and then I looked back, and it's actually in the in my footage as well. So it's definitely something that got carried over from my product into YouTube, and YouTube just exacerbated the issue with whatever weird processing they're doing. Overall, I'm stupid jealous of you riding the Ring. I will do that one day, but until then, I can only just watch this on repeat. Next time you head out there, give those pointers a try, and for everyone else watching, just feel free to attach any footage in the comments here, and I'll just go through and do this as well with your footage, and hopefully provide you guys some value. If you've gotten any value out of this, please drop a like, and consider subscribing. I have a fairly, I don't know where I was going with that. Oh boy, I think my light just turned off. It did. Oh well. I totally screwed that up.